All right, we should be live again. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right,
So-
do you look okay, Sheila? I wanted to make sure you look okay. I think you should look good on here.
I don't know. I can't see myself.
Okay, I see you. You look good.
Okay, thank you. So we wanted to do a follow-up today. And I know, Matt, you're going to be getting this going on the Facebook group. So we wanted to do a follow-up from last week on building a team, because I know that we had only gotten through the section where you were talking about doing an assistant. But there's a lot of talk. I'm a part of other coaching groups as well, where I pay for coaching from different companies around the country. And there are a lot of teams right now talking about whether or not to keep their teams and whether or not, to keep going with the way they're going. And so we really want to bring this topic up again, because we want to talk about why would you build a team and what it really takes to keep and run a team. All of us on this call have had teams back and forth. Sometimes we've had teams, gotten rid of teams, had teams, gotten rid of teams. So I think it's really something important that people need to consider about why would you want a team? How do you build the team? How do you decide to keep the team? And at what point do you decide to disband your team? I think those are all important questions.
Yeah, and is the team right for you? Because it's not right for everybody. I mean, teams started, they became really popular after, Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, came out. And, it's a great book. Gary Keller's a genius. And that book launched Keller Williams to the next level. And that was, I think, the main goal of that book was just to build up Keller Williams. But I think what it did was put a false sense of expectations into a lot of people's minds on, it made everybody think that they should build a team and that they should be a team leader. And the reality is not everybody should build a team. I mean, right. It takes the right personality type. Not saying that not everybody can do it. It's just not everybody should do it. And, it's a whole different mindset. If you love just selling houses, you love working with your clients, and you love that, that being supportive and that nurturing, I throw it back to, teachers a lot of times make the best realtors because, they're so supportive. They love that teaching aspect. Not necessarily, but if you love that part, maybe building a team is not the right, path for you because, not saying it can't be, but you're going to give a lot of that up because now you're going to go into more of the business aspect and not more of the one-on-one with the clients. Right. But then again, if that's what you want to do, that's what we're here to talk about and determine. So,
absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Matt, because, there's a lot of people that I know that, have gone out and built these big teams. And only to realize that, that half the people that they wanted to stay ended up moving on and going on, going out on their own after they trained them, or the people that they didn't really want to stay, that they were like, okay, well, they're all right or whatever, but they really didn't care whether they stayed or not. They would stay forever and wouldn't go anywhere, right? But also wouldn't produce. And so, what you got to realize is, first of all, I believe you've got to be a rainmaker, right? If you're not a rainmaker, you don't need to start a team. If you're not generating enough leads that you can't handle them yourself, I don't think you need to start a team. Now, maybe you want to get an assistant. You definitely want to get a transaction coordinator. I believe if you're doing one transaction a month, my personal opinion, I would have a transaction coordinator. That's just me personally. Okay. But as far as building a huge team, if you're not a rainmaker, if you're not generating enough leads for yourself as it is, and you try to build a team, your team is going to sink.
Right. So with that being said, who, I guess, we've kind of talked about who who's not for, who is it for? Right. So, because, I have a lot of clients, a lot of friends across the country that have built amazing teams and have done it really quickly and, are doing hundreds of deals a year. So maybe we need to talk about also expectations of, kind of what it costs to build a team as far as what's your, kind of what's your net number that you're getting, right? Because, some people think, well, I'm making 50% on the people on my team or 60%, but you have a lot of costs involved. And I'd say, once you build a team, you're lucky to be running on a, 40% profit margin, net operating income, 40% of GCI is what you may be taking home. And that's with you handling, a lot of the listings and you're just working buyers because it costs a lot. So, Sheila, you just, you just made the decision, with some different decisions with your team or working towards that. Talk about the costs involved and what you're spending and what you're seeing, what you've seen in the past and what decisions you're making or thinking about making and where you're going forward with.
Well, I mean, like you're talking about the cost, I mean, really to have a big team or a mega team, if you want to call it that, you're looking at the splits of the team members, and that's just this commission split. But in order to run the team, you're going to have not only assistants, you're normally going to have at least multiple assistants. You should have ISAs on staff, so you're paying people that are ISAs. Depending on if you're doing inbound or outbound calling, those ISAs have to be licensed agents. So that's a different thing there as well. And a lot of times you're paying your ISA, if they're a licensed agent, you're paying them some commission based on the deal that they're doing besides a base as well. Then you have runners because you have people that are doing your signs. You have people that are putting signs out for you or open house signs or whatever. Sometimes you have runners delivering packages if you're doing farming neighborhoods. So you have so many people on staff. People don't understand when you run the team. It's not like you're just bringing on, other agents to take out the deals. It's to take out the clients. You have so many other people that you're paying for to really run the team, because it's not just you've got to look at it that you're not just running a team, you're running a corporation. You're now a CEO of a company. So what does it mean if I'm a CEO of a company? Who do I need to put in place? Sometimes you get to a point where you have to look at having people run divisions of the company. So you have a listing division, you have a buyer division, you might have a media division because you have the whole social media aspect, you have the lead generation aspect, you have photographers, you have drone people, you have again, there's so many people that you need to be a part of this corporation that you're creating.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, you have to come up with your why. Why are you doing this? Is it strictly to make more and more and more money? Is it to free up more time? A team, can do both. It can free up time, but it will also take a lot of time from you. I mean, in the beginning, it's going to take the majority of your time. A lot of reasons is because people don't want to give up. I mean, if they're doing great business, if they're doing, 50, 60, 70 deals a year by themselves, maybe with one assistant, that's taking up a lot of time. Just hiring a buyer's agent is going to free up some of the time, but then also, are you willing to give that away to somebody else, especially a past client, right? Because a lot of people feel like, the reason they're where they're at is because of the service that they provide. I think the first thing you have to do is make sure that you're documenting the way you provide service, right? Because everything you do is duplicatable, right? And you have to get over your own ego on, only I can do it. Well, no, you can't. And I've found personally, when I step away from something after I've trained the system that I want, it actually runs better if I'm not getting involved in it, right? So there's so many people, my team is can do a lot more than I can do and better, because that's they're what they're supposed to be focusing on.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be able to let go. You got to be able to let go and let somebody else handle it. And I see that a lot with a lot of agents where, they're like, oh, if it's going to be done right, it's going to be done by me. Well, if it's going to be done right, it's going to be done by you. You better not have a team, because when you start, you're going to have to delegate, right? And you've got to be able to trust people, and that's a hard thing to do, especially with your clients. Gosh, your clients, their referrals, they're trying to get you to work with their best friend or work with their family or whatever. And a lot of times, guys, what they're going to have is you're going to have situations where, and I have it all the time, where they say, even though I try to introduce them to another team member, or I try to put them off on another team member, they say, you know what, look, we trust you and we only want to work with you. And so you got to be able to, to figure out how are you going to handle that.
Right. So let's talk about, because there's different theories out there. I want to get your guys' ideas on your team members. Okay, let's say the agents on your team. Last week we kind of talked about hiring your first assistant, getting a transaction broker. But what about the agents that you bring onto your team? One, do you believe that you should provide them leads? Two, what kind of splits? Three, are they just buyer's agents? Or are you allowing them to do listings as well, and just kind of building a brokerage inside of a brokerage per se? So I guess, what do you think? Are you providing them 100% of the leads? Do you have, I believe that, hey, yeah, I can provide leads, but I also want to, teach them how to fish, not just give them fish. Mm-hmm. Right. So for my team, it's for every one lead that I provide, you need to generate one lead. That's kind of my philosophy. I don't think this should be, we just hand them lead after lead. And I found if you do that, if you're handing them, then they just cherry pick the leads anyway, and they don't get followed up on like they're supposed to. What are your guys' thoughts on leads?
Well, I do think that there are two schools of thought. One school of thought is you provide all the leads and they're just turning and burning and doing as many deals as they can, which right. In that scenario, you're correct. They're going to cherry pick. So you're going to have people falling off. One of the things that I had put in place to try to help that from happening was I didn't do a round robin. I have it set up where a lead goes to everybody at the same time. And so it makes people be more aggressive, where it's not like you can just say, oh, I'll call them later, because if you call them later, somebody else got the lead. Right. So that helped fix that problem in some ways. But even I find that I have enough leads for 27 agents to be on my team. And even with the number I have, I still have double the leads. So they're still able to cherry pick, even though they're being more competitive.
So when you say that, how do you come up with that number when you say I have enough leads for 27 agents?
Well, typically when you look at a team member, mm-hmm. you don't want to give that team member more than 25 to 30 leads a month.
Okay.
And the reason why is you want that team member to actually take the time to do the work for each of the leads that they've received, so that in hopes of converting as many as possible. And that the whole goal is to not do what you said, where they're cherry picking, and if they get them on the phone, they take them. If they don't get them on the phone, they drop them and move on. Where if you're keeping them from getting too many leads a month, what that does is it makes them have to work on the leads that you've sent them, call, email, call, and call multiple times a day, text, email, all the different ways you can communicate with them to try as much as possible to convert every lead.
Okay. So with that being said, are you having let's jump from leads. So you're saying 25, so about one lead a day. When you're generating one lead a day, then that's.
Well, think about a typical follow-up system.
Right.
If you have someone contacting the lead 3 times a day for the first 3 days, and then 2 times a day for the rest of the week. And then you go down to less the next week. And if you were piling a bunch of leads on someone, how could they have that follow-up system? How could you handle that follow-up system if you had too many people to follow up with? Because if you don't get them on the phone today or tomorrow or the next day, you're still adding more leads to them to follow up with. So you need to make sure that you're not giving them too much so that they can do the follow-up in order to, at some point, get them on the phone. I mean, the typical lead conversion, we all know, NAR says, is between 6 and 12 times. So you have to follow up with somebody 6 to 12 times before you get them on the phone or contact them.
Right.
At what point in that 6 to 12 times over hopefully that first week that you've tried to contact that person that you're going to be able to get them and convert them.
Right.
Okay. So we talked about leads and giving. So you're giving about one a day. Are you requiring that they're doing set lead generation time, or that they have to produce leads themselves? Or is it just, hey, I want them to convert my leads that I'm generating?
Well, because I've had half of the agents that I actually needed to handle the leads, I have not required them to bring leads, but you wind up generating leads from the listings and from we wind up getting a lot of referrals. So you wind up getting people coming back to you, or you get people sending people to you,
Right.
just from taking care of people.
All right. And then, so with that being said, are you allowing, or do you have buyer specialists, listing specialists, or do you let them do all of it?
Well, I do have people that are predominantly buyer specialists or listing specialists, but if a buyer's agent brings a listing, I'll co-list it with them. And then I'll work with them to teach them how to do it.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And I kind of agree. I mean, I don't, the whole just being a buyer agent, I don't agree with, because I mean, most people come onto the team to learn, and I think, you got to teach them. They have to see both sides of it, right? And they have to participate in both sides of it. I do think that people will be drawn towards one or the other, but yeah, I allow them to do both listing and buyers. And then the splits are based off of, where the lead came from, right? If it was originally a lead that I gave them, right, then there's going to be a higher split on the listing side if they take the listing towards me compared to if they went out and generated it themselves, right? So, Shannon, what were you going to say?
Yeah. So you were talking about people being buyer's agents or listing agents. I have learned in my experience, 15 years doing this now, that if you're not careful, you will stifle someone. If you tell them that they're a buyer's agent only, and they will get to a point that they'll go, wait a minute, why can't I list? And then they'll either go out on their own, or they'll join another team that will allow them to list. And all that time and all that energy and all that, that you put into them is now gone. So my recommendation on it is, if you do hire a buyer's agent, great, but let them know up front, hey, look, if you've got listings, I'll be happy to go on the listing appointment with you. We will co-list it. I'll even have the thing where they reach out to you to get answers about the house or whatever the situation may be. But I'm going to train you through the process and make sure that you know what you're doing.
Right.
Yep. I agree. So,
then the goal is that you want people to stay with you. I mean, I think the biggest struggle that most teams have had throughout the time that people have been building teams is the turnover. Because like Shannon said, people, wind up saying, I'm going to go do this on my own, or I'm not getting enough opportunity. And so you have to start with your culture. What is your culture? Who are the people you want to work with? Who are the people you want on your team? Because I've hired before not to my culture, and it didn't go well. So you have to make sure you're bringing, it's not just about a warm body. It's the right people.
Yeah. Let's go into that a little bit on hiring, because, I've done the same exact thing. I've had, amazing people, but we just didn't click, right? But I went ahead and, oh, well, I'll try it. So I think the first rule of hiring, when you're hiring somebody, go do a lunch with them, an interview, talk to them. And if you get one inkling of negativity, one bad gut feeling, end it right there before you get started, because every time I've had a gut feeling of somebody not being the right person, but then I was like, well, I mean, they talk a good game, this and that. And, but my gut has always been right. And, if you don't like them, if your gut's there, why do you want to work with them every day? Right. If you have that feeling in the beginning, it's not going to go away. It's going to last. It's going to still be there forever. And it could be just you, but it's going to hinder the relationship, and you might as well just end it right there for both of your sakes. I mean, you're not doing them any favors, wasting 3 months of their life, coming onto a team where they're not going to fit. Right. So that's number one.
I would even take it a step further than that, personally. And I learned this the hard way, and I learned to start doing this. So I have an interview. I actually have 2 or 3 different interviews, right? So I'll have the first interview where I have it over the phone, the second interview where I meet them for coffee or lunch or whatever, and get the good feeling about them, so to speak. But then the third one is I try to schedule a time for them to either go to dinner or come to my house and have them bring their spouse. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that is because, they may be 100% on board with everything, but the spouse is going, well, I don't like them being on commission, and I don't like this, and I don't like it. And he could be a real jerk. If you're hiring a lady, he could be a real jerk, or vice versa. And now, you're fighting that battle every single day, not of did I hire the right person, but is their spouse on board, right? So, I really believe that you have to dig a little bit deeper, because I've had situations where I've had a lady that came to me and said, my husband said I have to quit because, I'm not home enough, or I'm not whatever it may be. And so I want to get to know them, and I want to find out, hey, who am I dealing with? Not just who's going to be working with me, but who's in their home life too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say that, having dinner with their spouse and their kids, bringing their kids to see, how their kids are behaving around them, how they treat their kids in that environment. Right. Another thing that I haven't done it, I want to try it though, because a mentor told me about it, is you show up when you go to a dinner. You go to somewhere that you're familiar with, right? That you may know a waitress or the manager, and you have them purposely mess up their order, right?
Wow.
To see how they react. Think about that. So, whether it's just a basic order, if they're asking for different things, but you tell them ahead of time, hey, I'm going to tip you a little extra if you purposely mess up their order, right? And so it comes out wrong. See how they react. That's going to tell you a lot about a person. How they treat wait staff is huge to me, right?
Yes.
I mean, if they treat them like shit, then hey, then you're probably going to treat all our clients that way, because it shows just respect. So, that interview process is huge. And you guys, be slow to hire and quick to fire. Right? If they're not working out, fire them quick. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your energy. Next, right? But be very slow to hire, because you're spending a lot of time and energy on this person, and it should take. I mean, it should not be a 3-day process. It should literally be it should take about a month to hire the right person on, right? To make sure that to come on to your team, right? Now, I think that's the great thing about where we're at with our organization is even if they don't come onto the team, they're going to be part of the organization and be a good fit no matter what. So Anything else you guys want to add on hiring the agents? Kind of, and again, you guys, the DISC personality profile, DISC. If you're going to build a team, I would highly recommend you go take a day-long or a couple day-long class on knowing the DISC personality profile, because it can make or break your team, having the right people on the bus, and that helps you get the right person. Before anybody even has an interview with me on my team, I want to see their DISC personality profile. Right. Because I will weed people out right off the bat based solely on the DISC personality profile. Right. So, but you have to validate the DISC, which they train you to do, because sometimes when people take it, they're not in the right mindset. They may have had distractions. So again, I bring them in and validate it. And if they agree, with, what the DISC is, then I'll point them in a different direction possibly. So, well, we're about 30 minutes in. That's about all I have today.
Yeah, I think that was good.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Join us next week at 10 Central here, and we'll hopefully help you get your business or your life to the next level.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys. Take care.